Welcome to Moving Through and Beyond, a podcast dedicated to sharing inspired journeys of redefining life, vision, and purpose after immense hardship and grief. My goal with this podcast is to give you hope and to let my guest journeys inspire you to make the choice to keep looking up. I'm your host, Carey Conley. Hi, everybody. This is Carey Conley, your host of Moving Through and Beyond, and I am so excited about this guest today. She is a woman that I met a couple of years ago when I moved to Oklahoma City, and we became fast friends, and she actually, for the past several months, has been a client of mine. We're going to talk a little bit about what she's transitioning into doing now in her life. Very successful woman, 35 years in the healthcare industry, which God love you, Andrea. That's a tough industry to be in for that long, but very successful, not only from the sales aspect and relationship building, but Andrea really has a gift for helping teams function more in unity. She's really known for going into, most specifically, what she's been doing the past couple of years is working in boutiques. She's been able to go into 2 different stores and not only turn them around from a sales standpoint, but really get the team to work more effectively together. And that's a huge gift to have, you all. If you have a team of people and you know what this looks like, how hard it is to get people to work together and want to be there and work together, it's a gift. So I'm just so excited to have you here today, Andrea. You are a joy in my life.
Well, thank you very much. It's very nice to be here, and this is great.
Yeah.
So that was a great introduction. How do I top that? I guess I'll let you facilitate it.
Well, it's easy when I know the guests that I have on in a way that I know you, because we've been working together for 7 or 8 months now. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I'm just so excited that I get to be a part of seeing you go in the direction I know that you're wanting to go and called to do. And I think the biggest asset for you, well, you have so many, Andrea, but I think the biggest thing is that you have been so able to share so much of your story with me, have been very vulnerable and transparent. And I think that really is why you get so much respect from the people who work around you. And I know it hasn't been easy because you have quite a story in your upbringing as well. And I would love for you to kind of share a little bit about that.
Well, I'd be happy to, because I've been really blessed. I've been blessed by people around me, and I've been blessed by the people that raised me. For people our age, we're in our 50s, and for people, I think, that were raised in the 70s and 80s when divorce became very common amongst their parents. I think you saw a lot of divorce happen, and a lot of children like that are us now were raised in broken families.
Right.
And so I think it's really, really common. And what I dealt with a long time was, and I think a lot of children do, and a lot of people that are our age now that were children then, was we deal with thinking it was our fault. What did we do that caused this breakup?
Right.
And I think that's really natural. And I didn't have to really deal with that as a child. I always felt loved. My biological father had left the picture completely, and that left that empty void. And it was filled rather quickly by a new dad. My mother remarried, and he's just a wonderful person and adopted me, and he's my dad, and he raised me in just a wonderful way. So I didn't really have to deal with that what did I do question, or I'm not good enough, and real trauma at the point of childhood. But I started to deal with it later, which is really common, I think, as we hit those trigger points in our own relationships, our own marriages, as we fall in love for the first time and things like that. So right. I think that's when that happened.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because I just interviewed somebody who's been my coach this year, talking a lot about trigger points. And it's kind of her area of expertise, Andrea, is that she helps people like me who've been through some massive trauma identify those triggers and change them. And it's also interesting that you talk about how so many of us, and thank you for lumping me into the 50s age group, by the way. I'm crossed over into the 60s.
I'm not ready to keep that quiet.
Right. But yeah, so many of us, we don't think about or become aware of those trigger points until much later in life, and how it's affected us in relationships, in our own success,
right.
in our careers. raising our own kids, all the things, right? And
Yeah.
so I know that when you were telling me the story about your dad leaving at 2 years old, that, you felt very abandoned. And I think that, like you said, is very common for
Yeah.
kids to feel that.
It really is. And so I started feeling that for the first time in college when I got my first girlfriend and first serious girlfriend. I had girlfriends in junior high and high school like we all do as little kids. But as I really matured out, having that first girlfriend is where that started to manifest itself. I then got married right out of college. And what I ended up dealing with was just not wanting to be left. That seemed to be something that just came up all the time, not wanting to be left. And it was really coming out of nowhere. That marriage ended up failing for a number of reasons. But the biggest gift that I was given following that was that my mother took me, and she took me to see my biological father's family. And we reviewed just having that physical presence and being told firsthand that there was nothing I did and that I was loved, and that maybe part of the reason that there was no contact afterwards was that it was in my best interest, after I got to know who this person was, that maybe it was in the best interest from that family and him as well, that he knew I had such a loving nuclear family now with my adopted dad, who's now my dad, and that it was the best thing. And what that did for me was just give me so much inner peace that it really was nothing I did. Now, my personality and my drive and characteristics were already developed, because I think we developed those at a foundational age of 7, 8, and 9.
Sure.
So it's what I've done with that personality and those characteristics that probably sets me apart from a whole lot of people now, and what I'm proud of. So,
yeah. Wow. What a courageous thing for your mom to do, Andrea.
yeah. Yeah.
But so healing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And I love how you're talking about how you see it now as a blessing. Because I think so many times we carry that trigger for so long, you saying over and over how you felt like you didn't want to be left, and how you manifested that in your relationships. Right. And it's not easy for adults to look at, becoming aware of what we're doing, and also owning up to it that, hey, I kind of brought this on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and it's a good line to, you're welcome. And it's a good line to continue to use when we have those trigger points come up, and I can always say, well, that's a trigger point for me. That's why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And that's the way I'm feeling, the way I am now.
Yeah.
So I think it's how I think where I've been really blessed is to take that shadow that we all have a shadow, and we all have skeletons in our closet. And I think instead of being scary and haunting us, I think I've done just a really good job. I'm so proud of it, with the help of a wonderful mother who's a very gifted counselor herself. I've been able to turn those skeletons and shadow portion of me into helpers.
What else have you done to kind of heal through that, Andrea? There's so many people, as we mentioned, that I think have been through this, me included, by the way, having abandonment issues that I'm working through. But what has helped you with that?
So I think that, I remarried, dated for a number of years to make sure this was the right person to remarry. And this person had the same type issues, albeit a little bit different, but very similar issues in the past as well. And so being able to connect over those and help each other feel secure in our relationship, that's been a big deal. But we both decided that we didn't want to pass that on. And it's a struggle not to pass it on when it's in your own history. But we decided what really helped us in our life, and this has been about 20 years now. We've been together over 21 years this in a few weeks, is that we decided in our relationship to take all that stuff in our past and turn it into good experiences. And we wanted to live for experiences in our marriage and not just stuff, not to acquire stuff. And we wanted to have experiences. Now, while we are material we have our material wealth, that's for sure, and we like our stuff. We have had great experiences, and it involves just pushing ourselves. And if we want to, if I wanted to partake in triathlon, now this is all the time I'm working in healthcare and having a successful career, but I wanted to work in triathlon or be active in race triathlon. I did. But I had to push through an injury. I had to push through the 1 in a million injury to a little bitty daughter, 3 years old. That was the 1 in a million that don't roughhouse in the living room because you could fall into the coffee table. Well, that's exactly what happened to our daughter. And we saw miracles and flow from that injury and a complete recovery, or what amounts to a complete recovery. You see a little child do that, and you know that the world is, that there's really nothing to be scared of and that you can push through most anything. So I achieved a lot of stuff I wanted to achieve. And when we decided to do something completely different and leave our home in the city and take and raise our child out in the country. And so I decided to do something different as while I'm still doing healthcare, and that was get certified in sustainable agriculture, cattle graze rotationally, all the while homeschooling, which we homeschool, but I was not the main parent doing that. And
I guess I didn't realize
so,
that you homeschooled, Andrea. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't the one homeschooling.
Yeah.
I was the homeschool parent, but I was not the teacher. I wasn't the educator. And boy, that was something to watch.
Yeah.
And that was a really neat deal. And then COVID.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, that changed a lot of us. And I don't know if you have any questions about that, but when COVID hit, as you can tell, I'm a real extrovert. And we had decided to leave the ranch, move to the city right before COVID. And I decided that, with being a real extrovert, I was 15 months locked up in this pretty house, and it just wasn't for me. So I decided to just, on a whim, really, I thought, well, it wasn't a whim. It was approached to me as a whim, but I thought for a couple months, and said yes to join the fashion industry in a very chic women's fashion brand, nationally known, where I work now. And it was something I wanted to do. I said yes, and it took off. It really took off in a great way.
Yeah. Which is how we met, everyone. Andrea worked in this store that I frequented a lot, and became my stylist, became my friend, and it's just been quite a ride to do this with you, Andrea, because I had no idea my move to Oklahoma City would introduce me to you and us working together. And I want to go back to just a couple of things that you mentioned.
Yeah.
When you, in summer, were becoming aware of what you did not want to pass down, how did you make sure of that? If somebody has these kind of issues growing up, dealing with divorced parents, feeling abandoned, what did you do differently raising your own daughter?
That we were very open, that we were a very open family, and that we talked about our stuff.
Yeah.
We talked about the stuff in the past, and we talked about what our families, what our parents had done, what they had done wrong, what they had done right. Yeah. And that we were very committed to each other. And when you don't worry about when as a child you feel that safety and security in your parents, it's such a gift.
Yes.
And so we have tried to keep giving that gift to her.
Yeah.
And they do have to run their own lives. We didn't run her life for her. We let her do a lot of stuff, and she's quite an intelligent little person. And so
that's awesome.
We're proud of her. Very proud of her.
Yeah. I want to tell you that hearing you say that, being very open, my husband and I did the same thing, because we both came from parents that didn't talk about stuff. And we didn't do a whole lot of experiences together. And so we made a concerted effort to talk things out and be very open with our kids. We had a great relationship with both of our children. So thank you for sharing that. And again, I think this is why this career that you are now embarking on. I think
Yeah,
so much of your experiences, and I hope people listening will, especially if you're a young adult, know that you can take your experiences, whatever you've been through, work through it, get healed as much as possible,
hmm,
but use it in your life and in your experiences now as a blessing for other people. And I think that the reason, and I know you know this, Andrea, why God has placed you where you are now is because all of your experiences, your success, but most especially how tuned in you are. I'm going to talk about the young adults because I know you work with a lot of them.
I do.
How your openness and how much you care about people and their unity filters into the success you are at team building. Wouldn't you agree?
You know what? I would, and I might not have a couple of years ago. I knew I was good at sales. I knew I was good with people, but I didn't know how that would translate as a leader.
Right.
And apparently, it's translated pretty well. I've been pleasantly surprised. It's one of those things. I don't think I don't think it's too arrogant to just look at yourself objectively and say, "I'm really proud of myself. I'm a good leader." And
Mm.
um, the teams I've developed are so diverse. And you mentioned the young people, and I love to coach young people. I have a couple on my staff right now that are just such a blessing to me. And one thing that comes back, I love it, is that they say, "You're always so good at helping us be better or correcting us without making us feel bad."
Mm.
And I think that's from being authentic and genuine and straight up. And I own who I am and who I've been in the past and what my stuff is and what I'm good at, not good at. And I think that's just being so honest as a leader with your people
Yeah.
is good. And we don't, as leaders, we don't have to be the best at everything. We just know how to get the best out of other people and deliver something for the team. And that's what I like to do. I've
Yeah.
made it a real point to make the team and the results of the team important to everybody,
Yeah.
all while making everybody else feel important because I'm taking their gifts
Yeah.
and accentuating them.
Yeah. It's been interesting that you and I working together that you've started mentoring a couple of them.
Yeah,
Um, and and they eagerly came to you saying,
yeah,
absolutely, pick me, help me. I would love for you to mentor me. And I think that has a lot to do with the compassion that you have for them, Andrea.
yeah, I do.
Um, yeah. Uh, and I think that's because you understand their world and you're willing to listen to them without judging.
Yeah,
Because I believe that some of them come to you with some pretty serious stuff they've got going on. And a lot of it is, I think, relational.
it is relational. It's they have different circumstances with their loved ones,
Hmm.
with their boyfriends and girlfriends, and um, and the things they deal with, and they always revolve around. So many of their issues revolve around getting fun and work and spiritual growth all mixed up together. It's so, but it's so great, and I feel so blessed because my goodness, did I screw up a lot when I was a kid, and God sure just has taken, he can sure make beautiful things out of dust, I'm telling you. And so it's just I say it all the time on my Instagram, but I just really take people to want people, encourage people to be the best, to be sunbeams, to be the best sunbeam they
Mm,
can. And to remind them, just remember where the sunbeam comes from. You don't have to be the sun, just reflect it and be the sunbeam.
yeah,
And
so
that's what I
good.
want them to do. And I just am really pleased with the people I work with and see their growth. They just need to know they're loved and heard. I think
Yeah,
that's it. Loved and heard.
yeah, so good. So,
Yeah.
what is some of the advice that you give them, Andrea, for especially for young adults listening right now? You know, if they've been raised in broken homes, or they're in toxic relationships. What advice would you give them?
I tell them to be the boss of them,
Hmm.
that they follow their own path. And I say that about myself. I am the boss of me. And I tell them, be the boss of you. Do what you want to do. if you have this calling to do something, whether it's being an aesthetics person or wanting your own boutique, you go for it and make people aware of it and commit to that. And I tell them, and other people too, all of the time, do not wait to know what your purpose is. Do not wait to know what the meaning of life is.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is found on the path. Get going on your path and follow those things that interest you. And that's where you'll find your purpose and meaning as you're moving along it. And when you're in your 20s and in your 30s, you're very, very young, and we are going to live a long time. And you and I have started these new powerful careers to help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And we're at our midpoint. We're not older. It seems older based on our history and what 50 or 60 used to be like, but it's not. And I want them to know they've got years to do fun stuff and other careers and change things. And because that's what I'm doing and that's what you're doing. And we have a tremendous amount of effect on that. And I think that helps them be comfortable knowing that they don't have to have all the answers as they grow.
Yeah, so good. Because so many of them, Andrea, I'm building a community for young adults, as you know, because I'm surrounded by them and I care for them so, so much. And so many of them are so afraid of making mistakes, so afraid of going after their dreams because they feel like they can't afford to do that, and just feeling so stuck and just like they're drifting. So I love that you are reminding them that they have a lot of time. But the key here is to get moving, is to take some steps forward.
It is to get moving because it's because what they're wanting to do is they're waiting to see they're waiting to be told, they're waiting to figure things out. But the key to getting moving is that's where you figure things out. It's not, you're not waiting to be told. You need to get moving, not because time is running out or time is short. It's not that at all. It's the opposite. It's that's where you start finding out stuff is once you get moving.
Yeah, so good.
And I too, Carey, I love to be around young people. I see myself as young. I've stayed young. And they bring me so much joy to be around them. I do have a tough time catching up to what's maybe stuff like anime and things that they're consumed with, but I just love being around them and their vibrancy. Yeah, especially right around that 20 to 25-year-old. I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, I know the directions that you're going now. Great career with the boutiques and sales and all the background, but your advice and your mentoring that you will bring to the world, Andrea, and where you're going next with consulting teams and going into corporations, especially those that have a lot of young adults, is going to make such a huge impact. You've got to be so excited about that.
I am, and the feedback is good. The feedback is good, and it makes me it humbles me, and I'm blessed that God's been with me on my path to have good relationships, because that's how I've been successful. It's a very relationship oriented personal success story, and it's the people that I've touched in the past that are going to help me in the future. And they're just so excited when I talk to them, and it's humbling, and it's actually surprising. So, and I love it. And so it's great. I'm really glad I was the nice person I was.
Yeah. You never burn bridges, people. Never, always be kind, always have compassion, because you just never know how it's going to come around full circle. And one of the biggest reasons you're going to be so successful, Andrea, is because of you being so good at building relationships with people, authentic relationships, and being an example of that for the teams that you've built and you're going to continue building. It's going to be so fun to watch. Yeah.
Well, it is fun to be part of, and it's fun to see the synchronicity through our lives. And it's fun to think back on the very first time I saw you walk into the boutique and you told me what you did, because I was just wanting to know you, and you told me what you did, and I pulled you aside and I said, I want to do that.
Yep. Yeah. And I said 3,000% you can do that.
Yeah.
All day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just appreciate you, Andrea, so much for being willing to be transparent about your upbringing. I know, again, there's so many people who come from broken homes, And with that comes a whole lot of head trash, especially
Yeah.
around what you said a couple of times around thinking that you were the problem.
Yeah.
I think so many of us carry that false guilt.
We do. And we all have our stuff.
Yeah.
We all have our stuff, and not everybody carries their stuff on their back and everywhere they go, but we all have our stuff. And so to really give compassion and to everybody that crosses your path is it's something that we really ought to think about more than we do. And that, as a stylist, I see women physically that we all have our stuff that bothers us, and with young people and the people that cross our paths every day, everybody has their stuff that bothers us.
Right.
And there's always someone that's looking out for us and that will help us. We just need to connect and find them and put us together with each other.
So
Because that's
true.
where we have our best success in life, and start finding meaning and purposes when we are together in all our diversity.
Yes. In almost every interview I've done, Andrea, it always comes around to us as humans connecting more with each other.
Yeah.
We need each other now more than ever.
Yeah.
I see the need for that, especially in young adults. They need a community. We need to have each other's back more. And I think that is a really good message that you convey.
Well, I would agree with you. And, I said something to somebody yesterday. I said, I'm very comfortable the sheer goodness in this young adults. And I'm talking about right there in that 20 to 25, the sheer goodness in their hearts and stuff makes me feel much more comfortable with the future of our planet than with some of the people that are running it right now.
Yeah. And
that they have friends all over the world that talk as easy as you and I are talking right now. And I just feel I feel much more comfortable knowing that they'll be in charge at that age than maybe. There's a lot of good in store.
Yeah. Well,
maybe we ought to pull. You bet. Maybe we ought to just pull 300 of them from the phone book and let them run things. We'll be.
You know what? Why not at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you on so many levels. I appreciate you as a human, as a friend, as a client, a mentor for me, right? You're just such a great example that I want to follow, somebody who just deals with things with such grace, Andrea, and so much love. So I appreciate you.
I've just been so blessed. I have lived a very blessed life, and while I had circumstances I was thrown into, I was really blessed with a lot of grace to get through them. And I think part of the deal was not that it was a give and take, but I was blessed, and I think part of that is for me to give back and be a blessing to other people.
Yeah. Well, you've made some really, really amazing personal choices. So thank you for that. And I love, and I'm going to leave it with this, and I hear you say this all the time, to remind everybody to be the boss of themselves, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to this episode of Moving Through and Beyond. I'm your host, Carey Conley, and I'm here to remind you to just keep looking up. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please share it with a friend or a family member. In order to be successful on this mission, I can't do it alone. Connect with me at www.careyconley.com, and don't forget to sign up for my weekly Do It On Purpose newsletter. Let's build this life-giving vision movement together to end this epidemic, save lives, and create purpose.